Hey everyone, this is Dane from Import Image Racing. Today we are here to install the new COBB tuning NexGen flex fuel kit for the VB WRX. This has been in the making for a while, and the fine folks at COBB Tuning finally made it happen. So let's jump in, let's install some really awesome parts and get to making more power. We are going to make our lives a little bit easier, and we're going to go ahead and get out all the tools that we're going to need. So it's only a handful of tools. You will have to get some trim removal tools so that you can pop the radio out. We do have this little CAN module that's going to be sitting behind the radio. So unfortunately you have to do that, but hey, it's part of it, brother. So we have a couple ratchets, 10, 12, 13 millimeter sockets, 6-inch extension, 12-inch extension, a couple flathead screwdrivers, 7/8 or 22 millimeter wrench. This is just for the fuel pressure sensor. And then these things. After we have all of our tools needed, we have everything laid out that we're going to be installing here. The flex fuel kit is comprised of 3 different boxes. First box we'll go over is the fuel pressure sensor. What this does, basically if you are doing a pull in your car, you have no idea if your fuel pump's starting to cut out on you, usually until it's too late. So what this does, this little sensor is very important. I do not advise getting this flex fuel kit without the fuel pressure sensor, just because this will keep your engine safe if you somehow lose pressure. It enables a fail-safe in the factory computer that can be done all through tuning and everything. It is a very, very important piece. COBB Tuning has created a CAN gateway. This is the way at which the vehicle communicates with itself. So this is really nice. Everything on here is all nice and mil-spec-like connections. One thing you can always guarantee with COBB Tuning is the fitment and the finish of their products. It's amazing, it always works. They're always there to help too. So we have the CAN gateway, the ethanol content sensor. So this is what will read your ethanol percentage. The bracket that it will stay on. You have a couple fuel lines you have to play with, a couple different wiring harnesses, but we'll dip into all that once we're getting our hands dirty with it. And then from here, it's time to do a little bit of a pre-assembly, just to make life a little bit easier once we are getting into the nitty-gritty installing all this stuff. We are going to put the sensor on this proprietary bracket. So this bracket holds the sensor, and it will also be holding the CAN gateway as well, and this is going to be mounted inside the engine bay. So what you'll do, take your bracket, take your sensor. There is some double-sided molding tape on the back side of the sensor. This is just to keep it nice and snugly on the bracket so that it can't move around. So the way in which you're going to orient this, you'll see that there are 2 holes right here. This little bracket actually will be bolting into the back side of these, and there is a ridge right here that this bracket will sit on. It fits nice and tight, so that way this is going nowhere once it's installed. So what I like to do, just set that on there temporarily and get it lined up about to right here. Press down, and then you have your hardware here. It's these 2 little Allens that come on the back side. Put those in. And then COBB also includes Allen wrenches needed. So we have these, and you're not going to put the power of Thor behind tightening this. Remember, we are tightening metal to plastic to metal. So it doesn't need to be incredibly tight, but for sure, make sure it ain't going nowhere. And bada boom, bada bing. First part of the pre-assembly done. Next, we're gonna look to the fuel pressure sensor. So this uses a 3/16 Allen. All we're going to do is just back that bad Larry out, and then the sensor will thread into place. COBB also includes thread sealer, very important. Since this is going to be touching fuel, you want to make sure you don't have any leaks anywhere. So undo that. You don't want to put too much of this stuff on here. Just a little bit's all you need. Going to get this snug with your 7/8. That should do it. We're going to have to turn the car on, and we're going to have to let all of the fuel out of it. By doing that, we're going to turn the car on, let it idle, and remove the fuel pump fuse. That way, if fuel pump's not pumping, no fuel is going to the lines. So we just have to get all of it out because we are going to be installing these. So let's let this bad Larry breathe. There it is. All right. So what we got to do first, we have to turn the car on, then we have to remove the fuel pump fuse once the car is running. Then, once the car is dead, we should be good to continue the install. This is where the install will differ on our car versus some of other potential flex fuel owner cars. Our car is equipped with a Process West Stage 1 front mount intercooler kit. These cars, obviously from the factory, come with a top mount intercooler. It would make your life a little bit easier just to remove the top mount intercooler. It's only just a few bolts and it pops right off. It just gives you a little bit more access to the hard to reach spots. Okay, so next there is a fuel line on this side down here, and we have to disconnect it. So there are these two little legs on the bottom side closest to the firewall. You need to kind of bend those apart a little bit, and this little plastic piece will pop right off. You'll see that there is a little blue tab that is the quick connect fitting source. So we are going to take our small flathead screwdriver. You might can get to it by hand. This just makes it a little bit easier. Pop up this clip. That will allow you to pop this fuel line off. But it's also a good idea to keep a rag around with you, just because you will get some fuel dripping out of this line, just to avoid any potential fires. Okay, then what we'll do, we'll follow this line and go to the back side of the intake manifold and completely repeat the process. This has the same exact type of tab that holds in place. So you'll just get your flathead, sandwich it between the connector, the line pops right out. And here it is. This is also another area where our car may differ from your car. We currently have the Killer B air oil separator system installed on this car, and the Killer B AOS, one of the swirl pots, mounts to the firewall where our CAN gateway needs to mount. So I'm going to remove that. We can find another spot to mount those. The nice thing about that Killer B kit is they give you plenty of hose so that you can stretch wherever you need to go. So we'll grab a couple 10 millimeters, pull that off. So next we have these two little stand pegs that we are going to fasten in place at the firewall. To secure these, we will use our 13 millimeter. If you have a deep well, that would probably be the most beneficial tool, but we're making it work without one. This doesn't need to be tightened incredibly tight, but you definitely want it snug. All right, we can move back over and install the CAN gateway. So this is what we look like with it installed onto the bracket. Next, we are going to plug in the ethanol content sensor harness, which has the brown connector. This will plug into the ethanol content sensor, just clips right into place. And then this will be loaded onto bottom left of the CAN gateway. And then what we will do is add a zip tie right in here. These are ports for zip ties to hold your wiring harness together like that. That's what we're looking at. See, that's all snug. We're going to go ahead and mount this to the firewall. It'll mount in these two positions right here, and you will reuse the 10 millimeter nuts that you had when you initially took that line off. Just going to snake that into place. It helps give you a little bit more room if you just disconnect that ethanol content sensor. So disconnect that, get your two 10s tight, then pop that sucker back in place, and let's move on to the next step. So next we're going to grab the fuel line that has two 90-degree ends. That's a 90, that's a 90. The smaller end will go over the factory fuel feed line on the car side. The larger end will go onto the top port of the ethanol content sensor. So the nice thing about these is that they are quick connect fittings. So we will pop that on there. Right there, you will hear it clip into place. Ethanol content sensor connection 1, done. Again, this is one of the pieces that we started with. This is your fuel pressure sensor adapter and the sensor itself. So this will go on to the engine side. Let's put it right there to start with. And then, as like with the others, give this just a gentle tug, make sure it's still in place. The larger 90 at the end of the fuel line will go on the bottom port of the ethanol content sensor. So that will be the one with the blue connector. So we will pull the cap off of that, pop that up into place, and then slide the blue connector over it. We will plug in the other side that will plug into the fuel pressure sensor block. Give that a slight tug, and we are good to go there. Plug in the fuel pressure sensor harness. It can only go one way, so we have this here. This will go back to our CAN gateway. We will remove the plug on the CAN gateway for sensor 2. And that is where our fuel pressure sensor will connect. And just like with the other connection onto the CAN gateway, this is designed to go straight down. So be sure that you have this oriented in that way so that it properly fits and you get all your data, because that's the whole point of having that to begin with. Then next we will grab the long vehicle harness for the gateway to the top port. So since I'm already here, I'm going to unscrew this top port connection. This will go right into the CAN gateway. This will be kind of sitting to the left, just like that. This will be looping into the car. As you can see, this fancy grommet. This will be going through the firewall and going into the back side of the radio. That's going to be the fun part. We are pulling off the AC drain grommet. This is located on the passenger side of the car, close to where the shifter linkage is. We got that little guy out. So this will not be going through the drain line, but above it. So we will snake this all the way up in there. All that's left next to do is to zip tie this harness out and away from your CV axle. So the last thing that you want is that to get caught on that, and it causes all sorts of issues. So here we have our harness. Next we are going to route this up through the back side of here so we can get to it from the back side of the dash. We went ahead and grabbed all the pieces that we're going to be putting on. So we have the CAN gateway bypass with the harness, put the car into 6th gear so it sits, so that way we have enough room to pull the radio out. Step 1 is to remove this dashboard cap. There we go. This pops right off. Next, the upper dash rail, pull outward until it pops, and you can see the blue clips. There we go. It looks like this has been off before, but there are 2 Phillips head screws that are supposed to be right here. Remove those, and then the trim around this should pull off. There are 4 10mm bolts that hold this infotainment system in place. Pop those bad boys loose. We don't need them where we're going. Just kidding, you will actually need them. So you're going to undo all the connections back here. We have success. So you are going to want to move these wires around a little bit just to give you more access to your factory CAN gateway or module, which is right here. So there are 2 Phillips head screws to pop that bad Larry out. So we are going to do that. This will come out and you will disconnect this rear harness. All right, so this is your factory CAN. COBB also includes this vibration pad. We're going to stick it on the top portion of this right here, just so like earlier with the flex where the ethanol content sensor, it fits nice and snuggled. You have this metal strap that will come around from the bottom side, look like this. All right, so now we're going to put the small end of the harness in. The big connector will go into the stock CAN module. So take this, and it will plug in like that. Now this is set to go put back in the car. Then I will go ahead and preemptively plug that back in. Next, we are just going to be looking for our fuel pressure sensor wire that we snaked up through the harness. So this is the last piece that will plug in to the CAN harness. There we go. Clipped in. We are set. Now the fun part, we just put this all back together and that's it. All of our connections are connected. We can situate our fancy infotainment system right back in place. Throw our 10mm back in. Gently slide this back in place. All right, so the last part into fastening this bracket that's holding our ethanol content sensor and the CAN gateway are these fancy 10mm nuts. You don't want to reuse the factory ones. So throw these on and we are done up here. So the last part, all we have to do to finish up the install of the COBB Flex Fuel Kit is reinstall your fuel pump fuse. So that way you can get fuel. It's very important. Pop that cover back on. All right, friends, this wraps up our install on the VB COBB NexGen Flex Fuel Kit. To reiterate everything that we did, we installed the ethanol content sensor and the CAN gateway onto the proprietary bracket, ran all the fuel lines, installed the fuel pressure sensor. Again, very important, do not get this kit without that, please. Then after that, we ran the wiring through the firewall, through the AC grommet that COBB also includes, which is very fancy. We installed the breakaway into the car behind the factory radio. It's not as daunting of a removal process as you may think it is. Then after that, all that's left is to contact your tuner to go ahead and get a new map. We recommend Clark Turner of Clark Turner Tuning. Clark's done an excellent job with these cars over the years, along with plenty of older Subaru models. COBB offers a 15% military discount. We also honor that as well. All we need is proof of service. So send me a message on the website. We have a live chat. I'm usually the one that answers all the questions on there. I help out with sales. Anything you guys need, just let me know and let's get to getting you flexing. Thank you guys.